Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
First deep flying high, fast cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Meaty boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? Tune
in the vibe. Party Rex, good centers. Got me on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Rubbly prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream high. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, but roll better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What is poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Guard E3, and welcome to the And One Podcast. Of course, joining me just like every week, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great on a Thursday night. We're getting ready to talk hoops, talk NBA Finals. Shout out to everybody joining us tonight live on Wire to Wire Sports Network. We appreciate you guys.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like forever since we've had a normal episode. There's too many good watch-alongs to do lately. Hopefully we get that one more. Hopefully we get Game 6 of the Finals, which, don't worry, we'll get into that in a little bit. But you know how we start this. Underrated Player of the Week. It's going to be great. Mo, who is your underrated Player of the Week this week?
You know, my underrated Player of the Week, because I think the theme is the NBA Finals, I'm going to go with Andrew Nembhard. I am a big fan of Andrew Nembhard. I like what he can do on both ends on the floor, especially his defense. Andrew Nembhard has the ability to body up people quick enough to cut them off, turn smaller players. I've seen him be effective against bigger players. And his history says he doesn't shoot the three well in the regular season, but come playoff time, Nembhard looks like Steph Curry at times. Like he is a drop down 3-point shooter when the money is on the line and an incredible lockdown defender when needed. His defense on SGA, I thought, was so key because I think it took its toll and actually wore him down, something I haven't seen all season long on SGA. So for me, it's Andrew Nembhard. And if he can continue to play defense at that level, we might get a Game 6 and a Game 7.
No, absolutely. That was a fun watch last night, that's for sure. Kind of in the same vein, I was thinking NBA Finals. I was thinking, kind of in like the underdog sense of the word, Mo. And there was like no greater underdog to me than, I think there's a couple arguments you can do. You can do the 0-4 Pistons. Yeah. But I think there's another team that I went with for underdog, and of course that's the 2011 Mavericks. And I plucked my underrated player of the week out of there, and I went with Jason Terry. Jason Terry, he was just a very dynamic, offensive threat throughout his entirety of his career. But obviously, everybody knows him when he just turned into an absolute flamethrower against LeBron and the Heat, and he was just great for them all finals run.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. That's a great player flashback, and I love that you picked Jason Terry. We almost forget because Dirk was the Finals MVP that Jason Terry hit almost every big shot for the Mavericks in that series. Um, he, like you said, a flamethrower. It didn't seem like he could miss, and it was weird because as I watched that series, I kept thinking at some point LeBron's going to guard Dirk. He's going to match up with Dirk, and he never really matched up with Dirk, but he did switch and match up with Jason Terry, and Jason Terry. Jason Terry got the best of him, and I'm not sure. You might know better than I do. I think Jason Terry goes what 6'2", 6'3", maybe. Not a huge man, a slender guy, and LeBron just had a hard time tracking him. So shout out to Jason Terry for having a terrific NBA Finals, and I love it that you brought him up, especially when we see what's going on in these finals and Benjamin Mathurin.
Say, Benedict Mathurin dropped 25 off the bench. Ironically, the first player to do that in the finals since Jason Terry.
Love it.
It was beautiful to watch, and I think there's just so much to unpack from the first couple games of the finals here. We're 3 games in. Indy's up 2-1. If anybody thought they were just going to roll over for OKC, I think they've very much disproven that. I'm curious on what your thought of. It almost seems like the Thunder offense just gets completely out of sync at times. I'm curious, just what's your take on this state of the Thunder offense in general?
I feel like with OKC coming in, the first thing that stood out to me, game 1, they didn't even go with their normal lineup. Like normally you start the lineup that you've played all regular season, all through the postseason. And then if you have to make adjustments, you make adjustments. But they made adjustments before they were even needed. Like I feel like instantly score 1 for Rick Carlisle that you already changed out of your lineup. And I think when the games get tighter, maybe you see this too. The ball movement stops and it becomes more about ISO ball, and they become SGA or break, right? They don't move the ball as much when they get into trouble. They rely almost too much on SGA, and I think you're forgetting that you have a Wiggins, that you have a J-Dub, that Chet can give you offense, that Cason Wallace can provide offense. Don't forget, Caruso had 20 the game before, but then you turn around and he only took 2 shots. I feel like their ball movement gets stagnant. It happened in game 1. And then in game 2, of course, they kind of ran away from Indiana. But in game 3, Rick Carlisle decided, I'm going to see if I can wear down SGA and J-Dub. And I think Indiana's defense physically wore those 2 guys down, because in the fourth quarter, you could see that they were both physically ran down. Like that pressure, it didn't hit right away, but I thought it started to hit a little bit towards the end of the half. It definitely hit mid-third quarter and on. And kudos to Nesmith. Kudos to Nembhard. Kudos, by the way, to our guy, Hallie. Hallie was terrific on defense. We don't even talk about that. Miles Turner had 5 blocks. He was coming from everywhere getting blocks. Like Indiana's defense played aggressive. They were physical. They played on a string, and I was impressed. They really did shut down OKC's offense. Like, when you look at the box score, it'll say, well, Halliburton and SGA basically scored about the same amount of points, but they didn't play the same game. Hallie had like 22, 24 points with 11 assists. SGA had about 22, 24 points, but he took over 20 shots and he had 6 turnovers. That's credit to Indiana's defense. I think they really did discombobulate the Thunder's offense.
And I completely agree, and it's almost like the Pacers going into Game 3. I think they did almost the smartest adjustment too. Is I think not only were they physical with them, but Game 3 you saw they just kept attacking them on offense over and over and over and over again. Which SGA, he's been a good defender all year, but when you have to burden the entire offense and they're just repeatedly making you work on defense, then you could just tell by the middle of the third he was just cooked. And then the fourth quarter hit and, they couldn't get anything to fall. So I thought that was great watching the Pacers do that, and it almost just feels like the biggest like X factor in this entire thing is just Rick Carlisle making every adjustment under the sun that he needs to. He never let Dagnut psych him out. He wasn't scared of the Thunder. He just continued to play his game, and he's made some great adjustments as the series going on. Ironically, like I said, the last big upset that we had, who was the coach of that? Carlisle. Here we are 14 years later, and Carlisle could be on the verge of doing it again.
And look what he's doing, Brett. Late in the shot clock, when SGA has the ball in his hands and there's 6 seconds or left on the shot clock, he's running a second defender over to him to make him make a quick decision with little time on the shot. He did that over and over again on that play where SGA panicked and he threw a duck out there and Hallie just picked it off and raced all the way to the basket uncontested. Rick Carlisle is out coaching Dagnut. He just out coached him. And I love it because that's what SGA do. He'll walk you down and he'll get to his spots. But when you run a second defender over there and the shot clock is low, you're making him make really quick decisions that he's not sure of.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Pacers, that almost feels like it's funny because, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong when they got Pascal. I didn't think this team was a finals team. I thought they had peaked last year, and they proved me wrong. I think one of the biggest adjustments, obviously, besides, Pascal getting more comfortable, I think it just has been Halliburton. And I'm not going to say, offensively. It's been defensively. I said this a couple times throughout the watch-alongs. I'm going to say it again. It feels like one of the biggest differences. Halliburton has just been so engaged defensively for them during this playoff run. And, all year you can see him, just getting better and better progressively at it. So, and, it's one of those things, too. When your, leader buys in, that tends to stick. People tend to follow. So I think, at times, throughout the years with Halliburton, you didn't, see the Pacers necessarily buy into defense. And a lot of times you didn't see him buy into it. But this year, it seems like he's really taken an initiative to, buy in and really try defensively and give it his all. And it almost seems like that's infectious to the rest of this Pacers team.
Give them credit. They weren't one of the better defenses in the first half of the season. They were almost awful. And in the second half of the season, Hallie got healthy, but some of the other guys got healthy as well, and they picked it up. They were a top 10 defense the second half of the season. And that's credit to Rick Carlisle. I'm with you. It's credit to Halliburton's leadership because when your main guy buys into it, then guys like Nesmith, Nembhard, Miles Turner, they appreciate that kind of effort because that's what they're known for. And if our best guys going to buy in defensively, when you look at what McConnell does coming off the bench, another guy that gets after it, I love that. I love that for the Pacers. And look, I'm the first to admit, I came into this series thinking 5 games, and I thought OKC would just pull away, out and out. And Indiana game 1 shocked me. By the way, one of the great game 1 comebacks I've seen in a long time. Game 2, they were a little flat. But game 3, when you get blown out, how you respond matters. Indiana came out, and they were in a dogfight because for a while, this game was back and forth. To Indiana's credit, they wore down the Thunder, who all year long, that's what the Thunder do. They usually wear you down, and then they pull away from you and go on one of those runs. And this was the first time I saw the Thunder physically worn down. That's Rick Carlisle, and that's his players buying into his strategy.
What's up, Jory? Hope you had a good day at work. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, what's up, Jory?
She thought Thunder in 5 as well. I will say my prediction is still alive, but, the Pacers might make it, like I said, they might just outright win this series in 6. I predicted Thunder in 6, but the Pacers are just outright taking it in 5. That was almost the beauty of the second half of that game because at first you're like, the Pacers got lucky. They just won off a crazy comeback. But I think the important thing, Mo, in game 3 was they showed they can play a complete game wire to wire and just outright beat the Thunder without, shenanigans shooting or just getting hot at the right time. No, they just showed they can come out, and just flat out beat the Thunder.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no, they forced them to play uncharacteristic. It's funny because you look at it and you're like, well, throughout the entire game, the Thunder shot 50% from three. But the thing that the Pacers did was uncharacteristically, the Thunder just kept turning the ball over. This is a team all year that wins the turnover battle. But the Pacers had them so flustered that they ended up losing the turnover battle last night.
Yeah, I really thought that the full court pressure by Nembhard, like I said, you can shrug it off early, but as the game waned, you could see the benefits being reaped by the Pacers. It not only took its toll on SGA and J-Dub on offense, it took its toll on defense. There are a couple of plays where there's a loose ball and SGA is just watching everything happen. He's not even actively participating. There were more than a few times when he just stopped moving. Like, they were worn down. And again, I can't get over the fact that I've never seen them, even when Denver took them to 7, that was more about Denver just having great shooting nights and being able to compete with them, but they never wore them down. And Indiana impressed me because you pointed out they've won a lot of games by having these great late runs and winning with a cardiac kid kind of thing. Last night was a back and forth game where they actually just executed and outplayed the Thunder. There was no late game comeback. They were just a better basketball team, which goes to show you they can win in multiple ways. I'm going to give them their flowers for that reason. And I feel like every time OKC is in deep water, they don't have a plan B. It's get the ball to SGA, let's clear out and see what he can do. And what Rick Carlisle is saying is, you can get the ball to SGA, but we're going to run a second defender over there late in the shot clock, and we're not going to let him get to his spots. And they never adjusted to that.
Let's say, what's up, Kyle? And that the beauty of what they're doing defensively too is they're mixing it up so much on SGA because sometimes they just flat out let him play 1-on-1. But they'll send like 3 doubles right before that, so now Shea's just overthinking. He's just pounding the ball into the ground, just like, is the double coming? Is the double coming? And then he just sometimes tends to overthink and forces him to make some mistakes.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you watch, I think we mentioned, Andrew Nembhard as, your underrated player. That guy has some serious shot making. That man has a nice array of crossovers and step backs that he can really hit when he turn it up when he needs to.
He's sneaky talented because you think role player, but he has these moments where he crosses you and raises up, or he gets to the basket and you're like, he's got a bigger bag than you think. And I agree with Kyle wholeheartedly. It's 2-1 Pacers, and let's be honest. OKC, all the pressure in the world's on them. They've got to win game 4, correct? They've got to win game 4. I don't care if you're going home. If you're going home down 3-1, not only are you behind the 8 ball, now Indiana's confidence is through the roof. They already think they're better than you. They already believe they can beat you, and then they've got you 3-1. I said this on the morning show. Who am I to say that suddenly Indiana's not thinking Pacers in 5?
Yeah, and Dagnut's going to get so much flack for this finals. Like you mentioned it earlier, but he's got to cut some of Case and Wallace's minutes. Case and Wallace just at times look lost out there, and it looks like the moment gets too big for him. Like, I know plus minus is a very flawed stat, but I think sometimes with enough of a sample size, it can show you something. Him and Alex Caruso minutes, they're combined -22 when they play together. I think that's kind of mainly just Case and just hasn't been doing great. I think he's a good player, and I think he has a lot of potential, but I think when it comes to Wallace, I think they got to cut his minutes. The moment just looks too bright for him a lot of times.
I also feel like their rotations, they're not consistent. The way Dagnut's doing the rotations, it's not what they did in the regular season. It's not even what they did in the playoffs. Like, people don't realize this, but Wiggins averages 12 points a game on the regular season. he usually gets into the game because he is instant offense. He got into the game. The man took 2 shots. I think he went up and down the court 4 times, and he was gone, and we never saw him again. I'm like, he gave up on him so easy. He gave up on Isaiah Joe came in, hit 2 threes, never saw him again. Like in a game where you need more shooting, I think you have to pick your poison, but you have to realize Cayson's not playing that well. And I know a lot of times we have these debates about how young players are. He's 21. He is a young guy swimming in deep waters in the NBA Finals, and I do think he looks a little overwhelmed. Whereas I think Isaiah Joe or Wiggins are a lot more poised that they should get more minutes.
Yeah, and I think that with Dagnut going into Game 4, it almost feels like it's really simple. You've had a rotation all year that works. Stick with that. And I get it. It's a bad matchup for like Isaiah Hartenstein. If you have to like cut some of his minutes and, divvy him out to Joe or Caruso or however you want to do it, that's fine. But just kind of doing what Dagnut did and just completely nuking the rotation just even before Game 1 started is just an absolutely wild thing to do. I don't think I've really ever seen a team do that. Just completely get away with what's worked for them all season.
I'm going to play and be true to ourselves. And if Indiana can play me off the court with my normal lineup, then I'll make rotation. I'll make changes. But you can go with the double big lineup, and the main reason why you can go with it is because Chet doesn't move like a big. Chet moves like a small forward. Chet can guard a smaller player, and you can put Ihart on Miles Turner. What do you know about Miles Turner? He's not driving to the basket. He's shooting a jump shot from the 3, or he's raising up at the mid range. But he doesn't have a post game. So I think that I would go with Ihart because Ihart's giving them good minutes. I just think Dagnut's giving up on him too easily. You got to trust in your guys. And it's weird to say this about a team that won 68 games, but you have to trust in what's worked for you, what's gotten you there. And giving Isaiah Hartenstein about 25 minutes a game, that's what's worked for you.
And with a double big lineup, I think there's an important thing they can do that they just haven't been doing. You can slow the pace down. I get it. You guys have played at a fast pace all playoffs. OKC's been one of the fastest teams. But it's not. It hasn't really been working out for them this series. It didn't really work out for them. The Pacers have responded by just getting more physical and, they're playing fast, but they're playing too loose and making a lot of mistakes. That's where a lot of the turnovers came from. I think it would maybe help them, too, if they just kind of, get some extra possessions in the half court, use their double bigs to maybe slow down the game. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? It's not like you're doing great in the case of Wallace minutes anyway.
Right.
So you might as well try something just new. And not really that new, just try something that's worked for you all year. And if you lose those minutes, then maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Maybe the Pacers are just too hot right now.
I feel like OKC came into the series, yes, rightfully so, that they were confident, that they felt they were the best team in the NBA all year long. All that's true. But I felt like they came in thinking it's the Pacers. They're not going to give us the kind of trouble they've given other teams. I really felt they came in that overconfident, and Game 1 happens, and you're thinking, okay, they've got to respond in Game 2. So what happens in Game 2? They won going away. And all of a sudden, the conversation was, all is right in the world. The Thunder won Game 2 by 15 or more. This is what it's going to be. And then Game 3 happens, and I don't think nobody saw the adjustment that Carlisle made coming. I didn't even see it coming, that he would embrace, I want you on him 94 feet. And go back and watch the game. I would tell anybody, go back and watch Game 3 and watch the defense that Nesmith and Nembhard play when they're off ball. Not when their guys catch the ball, but everything they do when they're off ball. It's a masterclass in defense in terms of ball denial. They make SGA and J-Dub work so hard to get the ball back. That's another thing that takes away your legs and zaps your energy. That's all Rick Carlisle, and his guys buy into that.
Yeah, no, and just absolutely terrific. I still think when it comes to that, when they did that top 75 list with the top 15 coaches ever, not having Rick Carlisle on there was such a sham.
Just for the record, you would know this more than I would. I'm assuming Glenn was on there.
Yeah.
Okay. Just answer one more thing. In what way is Glenn better than Rick Carlisle?
He's better at blowing 19-point leads to Josh Smith, Corey Brewer, and Jason Terry. Actually, no. You know what? Fine. Terrence Jones had a bucket in that comeback run also. Kentucky legend. No, that's what drove me crazy too. There's just no way that you can argue that Rivers is better than Carlisle. The only way you can make that argument is if you overvalued finals appearances and you're like, well, they both have one.
Right.
But Doc went to a second, but now it's well, Rick went to 2, and guess what? He was the underdog in both of them. And I think at this point, even if they lose, you go, well, he just gave a massive scare to a team in Oklahoma City that is trying to be an all-time great team. So
Kyle brings up a good point. He said Carlisle can't be that good. The Knicks didn't request to talk to him. Right, Kyle.
They sent him to voicemail. Say Rick's a little busy right now. My favorite is they made sure they're they didn't. The report came out they didn't call Milwaukee about Doc Rivers, and I'm just please. You can have him. Protected second, he's all yours. Just please.
Honestly, if you're going to get rid of Tibbs, I feel safe in saying you're not going to want Glenn to come in.
I don't think so either. It really almost seems like the New York coaching situation is just so weird. I'll give them credit for doing their homework, but when we were talking about coaches, I didn't expect I don't know, them to inquire about every single coach under contract. To me, the tipping point that I just died of laughter when I look at my phone, it's they requested to talk to Billy Donovan. I'm what has he done for the Bulls? I'm age ago. Yeah, Billy's our guy.
Yeah,
you're not firing Tibbs to bring in Billy Donovan.
If you bring in Billy Donovan, oh my God! Jury's white. Jury, you're 100% right. The only plan they had for sure is they knew they were going to fire Tibbs, but they had no plan in terms of who they were going to go after. And then the list that you find out about, let's go after guys who already have jobs that are already in places that they established. You're not going to get Ime Udoka. That's not going to happen. I think they even tried to contact what's my guy's name that's coach of Villanova? Jay Wright, right?
Yeah.
Jay Wright's not trying to coach in the NBA. That's not going to happen. Quinn Snyder's a good coach. I'm not going to argue that, and I'm surprised they haven't asked permission to talk to him. But they're asking permission. I'm guys, tell me that you have an actual plan other than asking permission, like you said, for basically every other coach not named Doc Rivers.
Don't worry. They called the Atlanta Hawks too about Quinn, and they said no. I'll give them some credit because I do think they're just taking advantage of that fact that they are probably the most exciting destination to go to if you're a head coach, and they're taking their time. They're doing their due diligence. So it's funny. The reports are hilarious, but I guess to an extent I understand what they're doing because what's the worst that the other team can say is no. Tyler Jenkins, I see that he's very much on their radar. There's a very real chance that it might just be Tyler Jenkins, which would be interesting. He ran that whole offense that involved just player movement and not really running any pick and rolls so I'd be interested to see if he brought that player movement style offense to the Knicks.
I would not mind if they would pursue a younger coach who was a little bit more offensive minded, more innovative. I know they want to shore up their defense, but your personnel. I'm just talking about their current personnel. I love Brunson. Love everything about him. He's capable, but not a great defender. Karl Anthony Towns is an all NBA player, and at the same time, never been a good defender. But you knew that about him. That's his body of work. And I know Tibbs probably thought the moment they traded for Cat, Tibbs probably thought, I'm good as fired. I'm good as fired. Because they've already worked together. Tibbs doesn't like him. You know, when they made that trade, Tibbs was like, thank God I'm renting. Like he knew he was going to get fired. The person that takes over for the Knicks, I hope they give him the power that he's deserving of, and they lend the ear to what he suggests. If the new coach comes in and goes, I run a certain system, but I'm gonna need this type of player. Like if they say, let me ask you this question: there's Karl Anthony Towns, who's clearly a better all-around player than say Miles Turner. I guess what I'm asking you though, would Miles Turner not be a better fit for the Knicks than Towns? Do you know what I'm saying? In terms of their skill set, wouldn't Miles Turner be a better fit than Towns?
Yeah, I think like pretty much most defensive-minded centers in the league would be a better fit than Towns. And I like Towns, and I respect what he did. Him and Brunson make a great offensive duo. But if I have to game plan with, my Supermax guy and my other $156 million point guard, that they can't be on the court together if I need to stop in clutch time, that's kind of an issue. And it's not always as easy as, we can just bench one of them. Why do I want to bench Brunson or Cat? Because if you're in a dogfight, you need stops, but you need a bucket. And the Pacers, for example, they exploited the fact that both of them were on the court together in dogfights. So I think Cat has a lot of talent, and I think he'd be great in a lot of places. And I think he was great for the Knicks this year. But I think with him and Brunson as a defensive duo, that caps your championship ceiling. I don't think it's there defensively, because I don't think there is a defense you can run outside of just trying to run a good old-fashioned 1-3-1 or 2-3 zone to try to hide everybody.
I don't disagree. And it's a weird question, I know, because people are like, are you trying to say that Cat's better than Miles Turner? He is better than Miles Turner. I'm simply saying that Miles Turner is a better fit for what the Knicks want to do. And Miles Turner shoots well enough that you don't lose a lot of the shooting that you get with Cat. He's not the scorer that Cat is, but he can stretch the floor for you. He's a solid rebounder, not a great rebounder, but a solid rebounder. And more importantly, he's a terrific weak side shot blocker. He has naturally gifted instincts to pursue the ball in a way that Karl Anthony Towns doesn't. This isn't me saying get rid of Cat. I feel like people are already doing these crazy rumors. I'm sure you've seen some of them. So we might as well entertain some of them just to have crazy conversations. If you're going to pursue Kevin Durant and you're the New York Knicks, and you don't have a lot of trade capital in terms of picks, one of the players that's going to be involved in that trade is going to be Karl Anthony Towns, correct? We can agree on that, right?
Either it has to be Towns or Mikal Bridges.
No, I actually think it's got to be one of them, and maybe both, right? Which is crazy to me. And I know somebody's like, what do you mean, Mo? I mean that you're trading both of them for a 37-year-old guy. And you're going to get more scoring, but you know what KD doesn't bring to the table at this point in his career? He doesn't bring defense. He doesn't bring any defense. I don't understand that kind of thinking. That if they do that move, to me, that's the kind of move that the Knicks would have done 10 or 12 years ago. It's one of those moves where we go, that's so New York. Like KD should have been a Knick 5 years ago, not today, not right now. Or the other rumor is, well, they'll just send them to Minnesota. And I'm like, okay, answer me this. What does Minnesota have that Phoenix wants? What do you have? If you tell me, well, send back Julius Randle. Nah, we're good. We're good. That you're not going to sell me on, we're going to send back Julius Randle and older than dirt Mike Conley, and that's going to be a fair trade. Like, they don't have anything that I know Phoenix is desperate. They're not that desperate. The only team, in my opinion, or there's two teams, let me correct myself, that it makes sense Houston makes sense because Phoenix can get their picks back that Houston owns. And Houston can get a closer that they don't have. Or San Antonio, because San Antonio has multiple lottery picks. And if you add a Kevin Durant and you don't have to get rid of none of their core, that's a contending. I'm not going to say they're going to win the title because I'm never going to jump the shark on that, but they're legitimate title contenders. That makes sense because Phoenix can get something from San Antonio. They can get picks and they can get bodies. Minnesota and New York, I don't think they can offer packages better than what San Antonio or Houston can offer.
They absolutely cannot. Kyle, I like your idea, by the way. Just hire Stephen A. and Perk as the coaches of the New York Knicks. Don't see how that could go wrong. Turner can contribute to winning more than Cat, and I completely agree with that.
I'm on board.
Did you hear of Magic Johnson's comment about KD to the potential KD to the Knicks move?
What did he say? I didn't hear it.
I want to get your immediate reaction to this because I think you'll get a kick out of it. He said they should make the trade because getting KD would allow them to play faster.
No, it wouldn't. That doesn't even make sense. He doesn't even play fast anymore. Go watch a Suns game. When KD has the ball, he jogs it up or he walks it up. He doesn't. This is not Kevin Durant from the Warriors. This isn't even Kevin Durant when he played Giannis in the first round a few years ago. This is not the same player. If you want proof, just watch his body of work. I've seen Kevin Durant face Anthony Edwards in the postseason, and instantly we were like, Anthony Edwards is better than Kevin Durant. He was. He dominated him. They have to stop looking at KD like he's 5 years younger than he is. I get it. I've heard the Morris twins make the argument. Well, KD can still give you 25 a night or 20, on a given night and shoot a high percentage. And those are all true. What he can't be anymore is he can't be your best player. He can't, I'm going to say it again. He can't be your best player. If Kevin Durant is your best player, I'm talking about right now today, you're not winning anything. He's not that dude anymore. I'm sorry. Stop looking at the numbers. Just watch. I think I asked you this last week. When's the last time Kevin Durant has gone on a deep playoff run?
2019 finals run?
Right. He got hurt, or he was hurt, and he got hurt again. But yes, he was a member of the Warriors. You go back and watch his time in Brooklyn. Yes, he had a sensational series versus Giannis in the first round. That was great. But they still lost the series. Then go look at the series where they played Boston. He was not good in that series. Both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum locked him down. And then when they weren't locking him down, they took turns destroying him on the other end of the ball because he couldn't guard either one of them. He's not that dude anymore. People have to stop. He's still an all-time great, but we can't talk about like him and Steph like they're still in their primes. No, they're not. They need more help.
Kyle, I'd love to get your opinion on this because speaking of, Kate.
I just saw what Kyle put in. You're right, Kyle. That's why Magic's not running a team. He's an all-time great player. You don't know what the hell he's talking about when it comes to basketball.
We all know that all-time great players normally don't make good GMs unless your name is like Jerry West. When I think of players, all-time great players that became GMs, I think of Elgin Baylor for the Clippers. That was a disaster.
Oh my God.
Then you have, obviously Isaiah for the Knicks.
Oh my God.
I'm probably going to be banned from New York for just mentioning that. And then, of course, the most famous Michael Jordan on the Bobcats.
Oh my God.
It's funny. You would think these all-time greats would be terrific at player evaluation and assembling a team, but more often than that, that's just not the case at all. And obviously you have Magic. If you want to know how great of a GM Magic was, he traded Zubac for like 20 games of Mike Muscala. So
Oh my God. Magic. Look, I love Magic Johnson. He's my favorite player all time. Magic was the guy that convinced the Lakers brain trust. You don't want that Tatum guy. You don't want Tatum. Lonzo's going to be so much better. So much better. He said Lonzo's jersey is going to be up in the rafters next to mine, Kareem, and Worthy's. Yeah, he said that. And by the way, I happen to be a Lonzo Ball fan, but I'm a fan of his knowing full well what he really is versus what Magic said he was. That guy, you don't draft that guy that high.
And yeah, no, absolutely. And also, like, it's funny. Well, you know what the funniest thing I've seen said about Magic's GM tenure is people will be like, well, but he traded for LeBron James. Like, I mean, did he really trade for him, or like did LeBron just want to come here anyway? Like,
that's exactly what happened.
I feel like anybody could have been the GM. That deal was just getting done.
Brett, you could have been the GM of the Lakers, and you and Rich Paul would have got that done, and they would have gave you all. If Magic wants credit for that, he can have credit for that. But if we're doing that, let's tell the whole story. Magic's also the guy that went on social media and told Lakers Nation and told Shannon Sharp and anybody who would listen, it's in the bag. I just got through having dinner with Kawhi and Uncle Dennis. It's in the bag. Kawhi's coming to the Lakers. And next thing you know, going across the ticker, breaking news. Kawhi to join Clippers with Paul George. Like, don't listen. I love Magic. And when he wants to talk about those great battles versus the Celtics and the Pistons and things of that nature, or even stories about him and Kareem and stuff like, those are great stories. He is an absolute great all-time player, great leader, all those things. But you're right. When it comes to roster construction and team evaluation or talent evaluation, it's like he has a blind eye. Look, Michael Jordan, who's a lot of things, when it comes to talent evaluation, he's the WOT. He's the worst. He's the worst owner all time. He's the WOT. He's the WOT. He was horrible. He saw what you, me, Kyle, Jory, and anybody with 20/20 vision saw, that Michael Kidd Gilchrist had an unfixable shot, and he still thought, I see Pippen. Are you crazy? Michael Jordan is horrible. Horrible. As good as he was as a player, equally bad as an owner.
Oh, I think I saw like one game of Michael Kidd Gilchrist. I'm like, oh no, this ain't it. Yeah, I just don't know what he really saw, because it's funny, the old logic of, draft a defensive guy and you can teach him how to shoot, you can teach him offense. Like, that's not how that works. There's a lot of like natural instincts and movements that you don't get with a lot of these players. And Gilchrist couldn't shoot, he couldn't play make. Like, I get like he could maybe hit a free throw for you occasionally, but like he wasn't giving you anything on offense. So it's so funny, Mo, that I find that to be the funniest thing ever too, by the way. Just, oh, well, you can teach blank offense. You can teach this person how to play defense. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work either way. Like, sure, like defense can be an effort thing, but there are little nuances that go into defense that separate you from being like, good from great, or even like passable to just terrible. So
Agreed. Right, because you can try hard all the time and still get cooked on defense. So it's not like effort is part of it, but effort alone doesn't make you a great defender. That is not true. So that line is terrible. And look, you saw Kidd Gilchrist shooting form. It looks like he's arm wrestling himself. How are you supposed to make a basket when you're fighting yourself? That was horrible. Like when he drafted, what is the kid's name? Oh man, the guy that was supposed to be the next Larry Bird. His name escapes me, but Jordan drafted him, and he was horrible.
was it Morrison?
Yes. Mike was like, I know it when I see it. No, you don't know it when you see it. You didn't know. Like, and look, I say all that to say this. I'm always going to be respectful of anybody that played the game of basketball, because if you're good enough to be drafted, if you're good enough to have a career, I don't care if you play 5 years or 10 years, you're better than most of us ever will be. So I can respect your opinion, but I don't think by default having played the game means you know more than I do just because you play. You certainly know more about playing it and the experience of it and being out there. And you're definitely better than I am. But the knowledge of the game, look, you said it before. Shaq don't know what he's hell. I mean, Shaq's on TV all the time, and we still don't know what the hell he's talking about half the time he's talking. I don't know what he's talking. Charles spends most halftime shows basically just taking shots at everybody. He doesn't really give analysis. The only guy that talks basketball is Kenny. And those guys are as big as you can get in the industry. So I do think popularity versus actual knowledge is a thing. Kendrick Perkins is on a national TV forum, and he says some crazy stuff weekly. I'm just, even what Jay Will said about if KD stops playing basketball today, he's a top 10 player. No, he's not.
I love me some KD, but yeah, no, he is not. He's close. I think he's very close. I think he's one of the 15 best players post-merger, but I also just think that he's in that 11 to 15 range, which I think is also absolutely fine, but to some it might be an insult, so that's always been weird to me.
That's not a slap in the face. And by the way, if the NFL genius is listening right now, I'm sure he has KD ahead of Bill Russell. And many other people ahead of Bill Russell, because obviously the NFL genius doesn't think Bill Russell was so great. You and I agree on one thing, because Bill Russell played in an era where we didn't see him play. We do know the numbers and the history, so I respect that. I will just say that for me, it's hard for me to not respect his accomplishments because you can't erase those. So I'm going to respect them. If anything, I can say I think him and Wilt and Cousy and Havlicek and all those kind of guys, I'd rather have them in a separate category, because I think it's hard to quantify their overall value.
I say with Bill Russell is an absolutely terrific player. One of obviously another fun stat is always the hardest thing to quantify statistically is defense, but obviously they have a stat called defensive win shares to try to figure out some of it. Oh my gosh, it's literally second place in like all-time defensive win shares is Tim Duncan, who is like a total of like 106, which it's absolutely terrific. I also just think Tim Duncan's like just arguably like the second or third best defender of all time. Yeah, Bill Russell's at first with 134.
and he earned it.
Here's the thing with Bill, like he's so hard to quantify, but even like you can watch like film of his game, like it does exist. But I think even just looking at something as basic, like, okay, we like, obviously when he was there, they won 11 championships. He posted 5 of the top, 25 greatest defensive ratings that we've ever seen. What did the Celtics do before they, apparently the Celtics had 27 Hall of Famers to lift them up and another 87 waiting in the wings. That's all I hear when it comes to Bill Russell discourse. So what did all 27 of those Hall of Famers do after Bill Russell left? Nothing. Like how often do we talk about the 1970 to 1979 Celtics?
Not a lot. I know they won. I think they won a couple of titles with the. And anybody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the Dave Cowan Celtics. I think they won 1 or 2. And then after Dave Cowan's, it was about a 6-year drought, something like that. Maybe it was even longer than that, but a 7-year drought before Larry Bird came along. But yeah, it was a minute. It was a minute.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think he just gets overhated because people also put up insane stats, and I think instead of using that to hate on Russell, maybe we should. And this is maybe we should just appreciate those players too, while acknowledging that
Yeah.
Bill Russell was just the ultimate team player that made everybody around him better. Like, I promise you, there's like 27 Hall of Famers around Bill Russell because of Bill Russell. It wasn't in spite of Bill Russell, and they were just taking him along for the ride.
Let me just add this. We give guys like Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman their flowers for being so impactful and helping their teams win. We got to do the same thing for Bill Russell. When you think Bill Russell, the first thing you don't think of is, well, he only averaged like 15 or 16 points a game. He wasn't the first, second, third. He might have been that sixth option offensively, but he was their anchor on defense. He was their leader. You think about 11 championships. There's multiple iterations of those Celtics team, but the guy that was constant was Bill Russell. He deserves the same respect.
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree. Bill Russell discourse just frustrates the crap out of me. I think that's why Aaron from Hoops Temple and I get along so well.
Is Aaron the guy that loves the Kings?
Yeah.
Aaron. I like Aaron. Aaron's a sharp guy.
Yeah, going back to our thing, like, I do say it was so funny because like we were talking to our one friend and how he would rebuild the Knicks, and one of the most absurd things I heard was, yeah, we'll hire Mike Malone and he'll teach Karl Anthony Towns how to be a good defender. I'm like, that just doesn't work like that.
It doesn't.
Like if somebody could fix Karl Anthony Towns, it would just be Tom Thibodeau, right? Like, he's one of the best defensive minds that we've seen in a minute. And even he can't do anything really with Karl Anthony Towns.
I don't know if you can fix him, like, because we the running thing that we talked about is you can nitpick at every player's flaws, but what I always point out to people is at least two of the top 5 players in the NBA are horrible defenders. And we don't kill them. We talk about how great they are offensively, how dominant they are offensively. And then we say stuff like, well, they're not good on defense, but they try a little bit. They're a little crafty defenders. No, they're not. They're not good defenders. I think Karl Anthony Towns is low-hanging fruit. He's an all-NBA center who's not a good defender. I don't think you can fix that. Could you get a better effort for him on that end? Yes. But I don't think you're going to make him a good defender. I think a guy like Towns, I think you have to approach him the way you would approach Iverson or Derrick Rose. And I'm not saying he's on their level talent-wise, but I'm saying he is an offensive-minded star who you might want to put more dogs around him to cover for him. The problem with the Knicks is Towns isn't the only one of their stars that's not a good defender. I love Brunson, but Brunson's not a good defender. We don't kill Brunson because Brunson does, while not being a good defender, he drops 30 points. I think Towns is just a player that people like to go after because he says off-kilter things and he's low-hanging fruit. But there are a lot of all-NBA players that are lousy defenders.
No, absolutely. And listen, if you told me that I had the second overall pick and the guy I'm thinking about drafting's player comp was Gerald Wallace, I'm moving on. I like Gerald Wallace. I like Andre Iguodala, but I'm taking neither of them with a number 2 pick. But
no, I'm with you, Kyle, and Kyle makes a great point as well. Yeah, look, I just think when you say Mike Malone's a good coach, I don't think he would be able to change Towns. And maybe it's not even changing Towns. Maybe it's changing Towns' pecking order on the Knicks. And I really thought about this. I don't know. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns can be your second best player.
It almost feels like they need. if you want to run Karl Anthony Towns at like center, you need like an Aaron Gordon at the 4. Like your championship level, like bad defensive centers always have like an athletic 4 to cover up for their weaknesses, right?
Agreed.
Like who's the last? Like obviously the last, off poor defensive center we saw win a title, Jokic. He had Aaron Gordon. Then we go back before then. Like who is the last like truly like bad defender that we saw play the center position? You probably start looking at like, even though he had that one defensive play, we can acknowledge that Kevin Love was not a great, consistently defensive center.
Right.
But he also had prime LeBron James to make up for that. So I almost think that if you want to keep running this Towns at center experiment, you might just, if you cannot, find a deal to re-sign, Bridges, you might just have to ship him off and just really scour around the league and try to find just like a more athletic rim protecting power forward to put next to Towns.
Or you could put Towns back at the 4 and have somebody else play center. Remember, Towns, he was an all NBA player at the 4 as well. I think his best position is center, but he's just not a defensive minded center.
I agree, and that's why I think you just got to go find that rim protection from somewhere. If that's moving him to the 4, if that's getting an athletic 4, it'll be interesting to see what the Knicks do. I don't know why. Like I want to like think the Knicks are going to continue to be smart about their moves, but something tells me that they're going to absolutely, for lack of a better term, just like nick up this whole process.
Well, they've already started out with this whole coaching thing. It seems like they've already nicked it up to a degree. Look, I get it. Knicks fans want they always want all the talent, but you have to realize other teams, they've got plans as well. If you're going to make a big move, and I feel like people think the Knicks, at least Knick Nation believes they're either going to get Kevin Durant or for some absurd reason they think they're going to get Giannis. I don't think that's going to happen. Because I always point out what do they have that Milwaukee would want? They don't have anything.
Oh my goodness! I've already said this before. I'll say it again. I better not get a Giannis trade update, and it's Giannis going to New York for like Mikal Bridges. I will lose my mind.
Speaking of which, so our guy Shams Charania, who's the new Woj to some degree, he's been putting out a lot of like tweets and things like that on social media about what's going on with Giannis. And I found it interesting that Giannis went to social media and said, "Does anybody else miss Woj?" I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, no, him and it's funny because you could tell like Giannis and Shams have never really been close. And this entire process, you could almost just tell that Shams was just kind of throwing like, almost darts at the board and hoping, one, lands on bullseye. But yeah, no, Giannis is just not a big Shams guy.
Clearly,
you can tell he doesn't like him like that.
No, not feeling him. And look, I don't know that Giannis. Who would know better than Giannis? Giannis is saying like, I haven't gone to anybody. We haven't talked about anything. You and I talked about this. We said unless Giannis out now says, I love this relationship, I love the city, but I want to move on, he's gonna be a Milwaukee Buck because they don't plan on trading him. All this trade talk seems insane to me. Even though I think the Spurs have the best package, if I'm the Bucks, that only matters if I plan on trading him. And I don't think they plan on trading him.
And I hate the Giannis trade rumors so much, but not because of like the actual trade rumors. I'm used to that. Just the trade packages are so terrible. No, I saw somebody try to say that the Spurs like, well, I would bulk if they asked for Jeremy Shohan. I'm like, what are you talking about? Shohan nor Kessler would be off limits in the Giannis trade. Like, let's be realistic here. This is a guy who just finished, once again, top 3 in MVP voting, and just put up together another like 30-10 season and added like 5 assists. He's an offensive system unto himself. He's like the most unstoppable player in the paint since we've ever seen since Shaq. Like, what do you mean that, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you want Jeremy Shohan? Nah, can't do it. Keep that bum. Like, no, that's not how the conversation is go. They'll be like, oh yeah, you want him? We'll stuff him in a box, ship him UPS. Like, if you want, like.
But let's keep it a buck. If Shohan is who Milwaukee wanted in a potential trade, then Shohan's coming to Milwaukee. Like matter of fact, if I'm Milwaukee though, I'm not looking at Shohan. If we ever consider that deal, I want the picks. Let's start there. I'm getting the picks. I think I'm getting Castle as well. And I might want Devin Vassell too, who's only 24, 25 and is a bucket. I might want him too. But again, I'm trading Giannis. I think I'm pretty much going to get almost everything I want out of that trade.
Right. And like, even if like, I could see the Spurs, doing the, I think we'll get one of two things at least. I think we'll either get Castle or the number 2 pick. I could see the Spurs wanting to at least keep one or the other. So they actually, have somebody to play with Fox at the 2. But yeah, no, either way, like I've looked at I've made a couple mock trades and I'm fine if it's just one or the other with Castle or the second pick, which easily I'm taking the second pick at that point. But yeah, no, I think regardless, like it would be Shohan, Vassell, Harrison Barnes, the number 2 pick, and probably another like two or three first. Like you're probably sending out like a minimum of like 3 or 4 firsts between picks and players to get Giannis. Like I think Jeremy Shohan would probably be the equivalent of about like a first rounder, close to it, like a late first, maybe.
I was gonna say late first, yeah.
Then you get the number 2 pick and 2 other picks. To me, I look at that, you go, Vassell's still young, Barnes, Shohan is still young, and then you still get plenty of future draft capital. Like, I think that's a more realistic Giannis trade package than pretty much them just packaging pretty much every fan's team. Just here's what we don't want. We're going to send it to Milwaukee and get Giannis. Like,
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. Every trade is a bad trade, and you're like, the Bucks are really going to do that trade?
No, like half the trades I'm looking like, yeah, we'll give you Kyle Kuzma for that. You can have our other forward for that. Like, you're not touching Giannis with that.
Like, I saw one where they said Rui Hachimura. It was dumb. It was Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, Vanderbilt, I think, in the pick for Giannis. And I'm like, why in the hell would Milwaukee want that?
Oh, I saw a really, really bad Knicks one, and it was so funny. The Knicks are just a funny team in general because they're always the team that has like the most bizarre ones.
I got a question for you, partner.
What's up?
What do you think the potential is of Kevin Durant joining the Timberwolves?
I mean, I think
being traded to. Let me rephrase it.
The funniest thing about that is I think it's possible, but the funniest idea that I have, by the way, is the Suns keep saying that they want a center, which makes me to believe, like, imagine if the Wolves pulled it off where they just decided, all right, and I've seen this mock trade before where they have because I think other teams can outbid them. I'd give them like maybe maybe 35% chance or a 20. Like, I don't think it's that high, but I've seen people start to throw mock trades like, well, they want a center. We'll send them Rudy Gobert as the main piece going back to get Kevin Durant. And I found that funny because my first instinct was, okay, but now who's playing center for the Timberwolves? Like, that's the challenge with the Timberwolves. Like, you can send Julius Randle, but the problem is now you would have to get him to agree to go to the Suns. Because remember, he has a player option. He can just say, nope, I'm going to hit free agency instead, and there's nothing that you could do about it. You could also, obviously, you could send in Rudy, but let's say even if they do accept that, if you're telling me you're running a Julius Randle, Naz Reid, Kevin Durant 3-4-5 combo, I'm going to tell you you're just giving up 100 points a night on the layups.
Right.
So, like, every package that they are trying to send out is just it's flawed in one way or the other. The most ideal person to send out would probably just be like Randall, I guess. But then you lose some athleticism and playmaking that, Randall gave you and, youth. Because, you can get Randall for another at least probably like 3 to 5 years. But to be clear, I guess I wouldn't stop that for me from Kevin, getting KD. The 3-year stretch that he gives you probably better than the 3-year stretch Randall gives you.
Oh,
so it's so hard to judge with the Wolves.
The only pushback on that one is, because I agree with you, but the only pushback I would say would be, yes, of course Durant's better than Julius Randle. But the problem is they went to the conference finals back-to-back years. You could get Durant, who is the better player, but I think the results won't be as good. Like, if you're thinking once we get Durant, we're going to win the conference finals and go to the finals, I'm thinking you're going to get Durant, but your results are going to be less. You're not going to the conference finals. That's what I'm thinking. And if you don't go in year one with Durant, you're not going in year two. He's going to be that much older. And sooner or later, he is going to hit that wall.
And I think the challenge, too, with KD is also, I put this in the wire-to-wire chat earlier. They're like, oh, well, KD's willing to sign a 2-year, $120 million extension. I'm like, I'm sure he is.
Right.
Like, he's not turning that down this late into his career. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's that. I think that's the challenge, too, that people are forgetting, right? Because you'll be like, Spurs should send the number 2 pick. They should send more assets. Like, you do realize you have to pay him like $120 million for the next 2 years to come play for you. And that's when people are like, well, he's still a top 15 player this year. Can you guarantee he's going to do that at age 38 and 39 when you're paying him $60 million a year?
Right. And what about the other side of it too, right? You're San Antonio, and I get it. If you get Durant, you think with Wemby and Durant and Castle, Chris Paul, Vassell, De'Aaron Fox, it sounds great on paper. And we joke about this a lot, but for sure it's going to be a damn good team on 2K. But how it plays out on the court, because chemistry does matter. Fox doesn't play well without the ball. He's used to having the ball in his hands. I think Wemby can play any kind of style. So can Durant. But I'm not sure they're gonna complement each other in the way that people think they would. I think the Spurs want to play fast. I don't think Durant can play fast anymore.
By the way, Mo, I found that trade I was telling you about because it was so bad that I even responded. If this is the best offer the Knicks have, the Bucks would block their number. It's Giannis for Karl Anthony Towns, Tyler Kolek, a 2026 protected first-round pick, and 2 first-round pick swaps.
That's the trade?
Yeah, I'm like, dude, Bucks are just blocking your number and never answering another call from the Knicks again if they try that.
You see what I mean? You want Giannis, but you're not realistic about what you would have to give up. Like, you don't really want him. The Knicks would have to give up, to me, they would have to give up Towns, and depending on what Milwaukee wants, because they might want Bridges, they might want OG, but they'd have to give up Towns, one of them, and their number ones, no swaps, just out and out number ones for like the next 3 seasons that they have. They already gave up 4 for Bridges, so now you're talking about what? I'm getting your 20, 28, 29, 25. Like, you're going to give up at least 3 number ones. And even then, to be honest, if I'm Milwaukee, I would be honest with New York. Yeah, I don't think yours is the best offer we can get. Like even that's not the best offer. Because if you're Milwaukee, I can accept the fact that if we lose Giannis, we're going to take a step back. But we have to take a step back before we can go forward. But I want young players that can play right away, that are going to be part of my future, and I want some picks. I want all those things. I'm going to be that. If I'm trading away a transcendent player, I'm going to be that greedy. And if I can't get anything close to that, then I'm not trading away a transcendent player.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I even said this before, like with half these trade packages I'm seeing too, I'm like, honestly, if that's the best you're going to offer, I'd rather just let his contract run out. I probably get more value off like just trying to win another title with him for the next 2 years before he leaves than like making half these trades. Like between like the value he brings to the community, the money he brings in, between like him like giving teams a realistic like window to title contention, like honestly, with if you don't offer a deal that blows Milwaukee out of the water, even if he does become available, like there's also just no guarantee they move on from him anyway. They may be like, okay, well, you're going to play out your last few years and then you can go wherever you want.
I know if I were Bucks management, that would be my mandate. If we don't get an offer that blows us away to where we're like, Giannis, we love you, but this is so good for our future as well as our present, we had to take it. Anything less than that, I'm with you. I would rather have you, because I know the kind of professional you are and I know how hard you play, that you're not gonna shortchange our fans. I would rather have you have your contract run out than take a bad deal. That's me.
By the way, speaking of bad deals, Mo, do you think that the Philadelphia 76ers regret cutting TJ McConnell after that masterclass last night?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the Sixers regret cutting a lot of different guys. A lot of guys that used to be Sixers have gone on to become NBA champions. I'm just saying, if you think about it, McConnell is in position to win one. Iguodala won multiple NBA titles. Jrue Holiday has won multiple NBA titles. I'm just saying they have a lot of guys have gone on to have better careers and won titles. The thing that Philly is constantly chasing, but they haven't achieved. Other guys have left there and won titles, which is a good sign. If you're a guy like, say, Tyrese Maxey, one day you're going to be free and you're probably going to win a title. And I'm joking. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey's not going anywhere anytime soon, but you get my point.
Yeah, no, it was like a 76ers nightmare yesterday if you're the fans, because you're watching McConnell gets all these steals and then Isaiah Joe's cashing three, and you're like, well, why'd we get rid of him too?
Could have used him too. Right.
But I love TJ McConnell. He was just so fun last night. Like, it's so funny because he doesn't like when you like make like when we talk about like a white basketball player and start doing all the stereotypes on him, like that just turns into TJ McConnell. Like,
right.
He's smart, he's gritty, like he's not out athleting anybody. Like, that was just TJ McConnell last night. Like, just high IQ, always in position, and he cannot elevate to jump over anybody, but he just almost like runs around in circles until he finds an opening. And it's really just straight up hustle, grit, and determination that gets him into half these like positions that he's in. And it's just such a sight to see. I love the effort that TJ McConnell gave them.
He's a dog. He gets out. You know what else is weird about him? Like, he doesn't finish at the basket like a Kyrie or something like that, but you almost never see his shot get blocked. It's weird.
He's very crafty around the rim. Like, it was just that's what I knew. Like, that's what it felt to me. That was the turning point of like the game, right? Like, the Thunder are up 4, Pacers hit a bucket to cut it to to cut it to 2, and then they just throw it straight to TJ McConnell, who steals the inbounds and lays it in. Like, that felt like, to me, I'm just like, because I think that was about the time where I put in the chat, like, oh, the Thunder are starting to come unraveled. Because, like, that's what it felt like. Like, that almost felt like a huge, like, turning point in terms of momentum. And that's another thing the Thunder got to clean up is, I get the physical ball pressure can get to you, but also, like, when there's no pressure and you're just trying to inbound it, just don't throw it right at the Pacers. Like, you don't need those unforced mistakes trying to win a finals game.
that was bizarre because I said that this on the morning show. It was TJ McConnell doing an Alex Caruso on Alex Caruso. Caruso's the one that threw the ball in right to McConnell. Usually he's the one doing that. I was like, this is so crazy that because you don't expect Alex Caruso to make such a bonehead play, but he did. And kudos to PJ McConnell for being such a dog defensively. Like he's kind of like their own Alex Caruso, right? He gets after it, can score when needed or when asked upon, and he's able to take Halliburton off the ball sometimes, which is great.
No, absolutely. It's just absolutely terrific. I'm excited to see what happens in Game 4. See if TJ McConnell can make that kind of an impact again. Like I said, I just watching that game. I'm like, every single high school coach right now is clapping and like throwing a parade because they're like, that's how you play basketball. Look at him. Like, it was just an absolute masterclass, man. I love to see it.
I think you're going to have a lot of coaches, high school coaches, playing his tape, right? They are like this. Look at the stance he's in. See how see how he turns them. Look at his footwork. Like, yeah, look, you give credit where credit is due. Because I was giving Alex Caruso the same love in the conference finals, and I gave him the same love the other night in Game 2. He was terrific. So I feel like when we look at these two teams, I know Oklahoma City naturally has more firepower, but if you really go top to bottom, they're a lot closer than the average fan would think. If like J-Dub is obviously the sidekick to Shea, right? But then that would be Siakam for the Pacers to Halliburton, right? And then, of course, Chet would be the guy that could offset because he's a big that can shoot the ball and block shots. Well, then that would be Miles Turner for the Pacers. Like there is point and counterpoint. I think OKC has more overall talent, but I think the Pacers, I would argue they might have more chemistry.
And I think the Pacers are just mentally tougher.
I like that. I like that too.
That's what seems to be the biggest difference in games like 1 and 3. And Game 2, they blew the Pacers out and they looked fantastic. But when the pressure got cranked up in Game 1 and the Pacers started making a run, the Thunder just completely fell apart. Game 3, like I said, it was 95-91. They're up 4, but 4 quick points and the Thunder just completely unraveled after that. Like,
agreed.
They're a team that when they're all doing good, they're great. But if as soon as the pressure gets cranked up, and as soon as a couple of shots don't go in, it's almost like that's when they hit the panic button. They're like, okay, here you go, Shea, do something.
Yes.
Shea's great, but that's wears on him after, throughout the course of a game.
And I thought they grew up a little bit in the Denver series, but I'm not sure. I think they did, but at the same time, Denver can't shoot the way Indiana can, right? Like Indiana's clearly has more shooters than Denver has. And it shows because when Indiana moves the ball and they play at a certain pace, everybody's live. Everybody has an opportunity to get a shot up. And Denver can't play that way because of the way they're built. So I'm not saying OKC isn't as good as advertised. I think they're a great team, but I think they do have a flaw, and is that when they're in a dogfight, more times than not, they're not comfortable in a dogfight. And maybe to Indiana's credit, because they've had to come back multiple times throughout the playoffs, being in a dogfight for them is like a Monday. They're just used to it.
Yeah, and it's funny because it almost felt like before Aaron Gordon got announced that, he had the hamstring injury and he was, going to be out, then he played anyway. I genuinely, after that Game 6, thought that the Nuggets were going to win. Like I said, that was obviously until it was announced that Gordon was just his legs were cooked. I'm like, well, there's no way. But yeah, no. It's what now. It almost remains to be seen. You thought they answered that question: are they mentally tough enough to handle a dogfight? You thought they answered it in the Denver series. They pretty much just blew out the Timberwolves, so that really never even came into question. But now here they are again. They're against a team that's pretty. That since January has been the second best team in the league, only behind the OKC Thunder. Statistically speaking, they've been on a tear ever since January and everybody got healthy. And they're right back to their old habits of just kind of unraveling down the stretch.
But I think they've just fully underestimated how good Indiana is. Like, I think when you're OKC and you beat Denver, an established team, and then you pretty much go through Minnesota like a buzzsaw, I feel like they thought that's kind of like the championship. Like, I feel like they don't think that Indiana was going to be as tough a series for them as the Nuggets were. Like, I thought after they beat the Nuggets, I did not think Minnesota was going to beat them. I never thought that. I said before the series, the only way this is even a good series is if Anthony Edwards is as good or better than Shea, which he was not for the entirety of the series. And I just think that Indiana came in with all the confidence in the world, with nothing but house money, because they're not the favorite. Oklahoma City walked into this series an overwhelming favorite, and now they find themselves down 2-1 to a team that has made them kind of shaky in two different games already. And is the only way Oklahoma City can win in this game or in this series is they got to win going away by 15 or more points, because I think there's going to be at least two more dogfight games in this series, and Oklahoma City's got to show more poise down the stretch, because Indiana, they're so battle tested, they're used to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it'll definitely be an interesting watch. Mo, I wanted to get your take on a little WNBA action too, because I think there's some very interesting. This one team in general that's just very interesting to me. Obviously, before the season started, you looked at the Aces and you thought they'd be a really good team. You have Asia Wilson returning. They had great chemistry the past couple of years. Yeah, that hasn't been the case. They're league worst in field goal percentage, 38% from the field. They're like only shooting 33% from three. Do you think it's time for the Aces to hit the panic button, or do you think it's a little too early for that?
I want to remind people, though, this unraveling we're kind of seeing of the Aces, didn't we see that kind of at the second half of last season? They weren't that great. They weren't that great down the stretch. That chemistry that they had, the offense, the ball movement, the shooting, all that kind of evaporated, and they struggled. They almost became Asia Wilson or bust. And then the start that they're off to this season, clearly to me, Brett, something's amiss. I don't know if it's a chemistry thing. Is there a disconnect between the players and the coaching staff? Something's not right about them overall. I don't want to use the word panic, but I will say this, because sports is about your mental as much as your talent. Other teams that are competing with the Aces, they look at the Aces and they come into games versus the Aces expecting to win now. Like, they're playing against the Aces like they're a less than team. Like the Aces don't strike fear into other teams like they used to. And I think that's a problem. And I'm going to put it out there. I think the Aces are going to have to consider making a major move or two if they want to change things around.
Yeah, no, they, there was Kelsey Plum trade to start the year, but that hasn't worked out in their favor. Plum is now absolutely balling out. I'll give Jewel Lloyd some credit. She's one of their best three-point shooters, but it almost seems that, losing Kelsey was a big blow. That's just one less playmaker you have on the perimeter. So, yeah, no, they kind of unravel it. That's why I was curious on your opinion, because they did kind of just start to – you saw the little cracks at the second half of last year. But you're almost just kind of like, oh, well, they have Asia Wilson. They'll be all good. They have all the – but it has almost just continued. And maybe that's the problem, though, Mo. Like, we can be like, oh, they have Asia Wilson. They'll be all good. But I think maybe it almost seems at times the players got that mentality too, and almost like caused some complacency. Because like you said, that ball movement and everything's just gone.
I love how you pointed that out. I think that's what it is. They have Asia Wilson, but she needs them too. She's a great player. I still think she's one of, if not still the best player in the W. She's either one or two, right? She's right there. She's that great a player, but she still needs some help. She still needs her teammates to play at a high level as well. I think too many times they get Asia, they end up watching Asia Wilson play basketball rather than everybody being connected and being on the string on both ends of the floor. And to me, that's a combination of coaching and complacency that they've got to work out. And I know that's easier said than done. But when you look, a good example is look at somebody that's been a chief rival of theirs. Look at the Liberty. They're all business. The Liberty are all business. They're on a mission. They're like, we're trying to repeat. Like, that's what I expected from the Aces, and they're anything but that.
No, absolutely. And we of course, I still find funny, cap off on some fun social media drama, because Brandon Jennings ever learned to not talk? Because that man all of a sudden started beefing with Drew Hanlon, one of the trainers of some of the players that are in the NBA Finals. And listen, I haven't seen the video, but he may have gotten humbled because apparently he won 1v1 against Lou Will, and it didn't go well for him. So I still find it so weird, Mo, that I keep seeing Brandon Jennings pop up. I don't find it weird that Lou Will, would beat him in one-on-one. I was gonna go. I'm not surprised that Lou Will beat him at all. I thought that's what I was saying. Yeah, okay. Nah, I don't know why he's still talking. Pretty much, why? What is happening?
You know what? I feel like because the way that we are all involved in sports media, that I guess with former players at least, their egos can sometimes be a little bit over exaggerated times 10. Like, everybody on that show views themselves at a much higher level than they actually were. Like, Jennings is basically telling you, yeah, Drew Holiday had a better career, but he's not a better basketball player than I am. Well, yeah, he is, but okay. Or Kenyon Martin will tell you about how good he actually is. Gil will remind you that he cooked Kobe. That's his favorite story to bring up. And then you got Rashard McCants, who swears that it was a conspiracy that stopped him from becoming a big star, right? They're entertaining, but it's funny how everybody views their own career in a much higher light.
Oh, yeah, no, like I said, that McCann's clip with Tony Allen was so funny, because him just going let's get this, my career high, I had 15 in the first quarter. If they would have let me play, big minutes, I could have had 81. And Tony Allen's like, who's 81? McCants goes, Kobe's 81. And he just immediately turns to the camera. Boy, that's out the mud. This is Rashad McCants. I'm like, crazy you have to say something for somebody to immediately just cue the outro. That was just absolutely hilarious.
They say a lot of out-of-pocket stuff. And I get it, right? Because when you say it, what are you going to get? You're going to get clicks. You're going to get reactions. It's why people say some of the things that they say. Nobody's better at it than the guy that it shows it. Nobody says more off-the-top stuff than Gil does. I will say this. McCants gives him a run for his money.
I think that's why my favorite podcast hoopers listen to are Jeff Teague and Kevin Garnett and Amon Shumpert, because they just keep it real and they're so funny. When Paul Pierce was talking about guys who would want to play in one-on-one, and then he starts to say ISO Joe, and you hear Kevin Garnett, whoa, slow down, Pete, slow down. You don't want none of that, slow down.
Yeah. I mean, and look, Paul Pierce is a terrific basketball player, and I'm sure he'd be a great one-on-one player. He doesn't want to play Joe Johnson one-on-one. You don't want that. But that, by the way, that's like being one of those guys that go, I'll play Michael Beasley. I could have warned people yo, I know his NBA career didn't pan out the way what it should have been, but as a basketball talent, especially in a situation of one-on-one, Michael Beasley is one of the most dangerous one-on-one players, if not probably top 3 in the world. Like, you're not beating Michael Beasley one-on-one.
Say he just played like Lance Stevenson this past week and he beat him 33-22. Like, it just wasn't even close.
For $100,000.
Say, apparently they offered that to ISO Joe, and he said, "Nah, you're going to need more than that to get me out there."
Beasley versus ISO Joe would be. I've seen them play against each other in the Big Three, so I'd be interested in that one-on-one. I'm sure Joe could care less. Like you said, he's made millions of dollars. Like they're gonna have to entice him with something else.
No, absolutely. Like, I think a lot of people, they'll make jokes about Beasley and his ability to, win a game of one-on-one because, like, oh, he only scored 12 points in an NBA career. But listen, some guys are built for 1v1, some are 3v3, some are 5v5. Beasley wasn't necessarily almost like built for NBA level 5-on-5 basketball. Like, he did well, but like he wasn't a transcendent player. Like, he wasn't, amazing.
Not like he could have been. Like, look, talent, his talent. I'm talking on talent alone. Michael Beasley should have been an all-star caliber player. But you know how that works. Your talent doesn't define your career. Michael Beasley struggled with being consistent. Also, he's talked about mental health issues, which I completely respect, and all the things he had to deal outside of basketball. But I judge him in a different way. You can be a great player and be acknowledged as a great player and not be a great NBA player. They're two different things. Michael Beasley is a hooper. He's a career hooper. And I'm sure Lance Stevenson won't be the last big-name player he plays one-on-one. He won't be the last big-name player he beats one-on-one. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe Michael Beasley is 35, 36 years old and in terrific shape, and you're going to play him in a game of one-on-one. I wouldn't sign up for that. Even KD, who people we love KD, I don't think KD would play Michael Beasley one-on-one. And they've played against each other multiple times. They grew up together, but KD's smart. If KD is going to deal with Michael Beasley, he's probably going to play 5-on-5.
No, absolutely. I'd say 100%. With that being said, Mo, that's all the time we have for today. Anything you wanted to add before we get up on out of here?
No, just thank you guys in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live here on Wire to Wire Network and One Podcast. Join us again next Thursday. Hope to see you guys. Appreciate you guys so much, and good night.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what next Thursday is going to be. It might be a watch-along. If we get to a Game 6, might be a regular episode. So, oh, yeah, I'm hoping for that Game 6. Just a 7-game finals would be the greatest thing ever right now.
Agreed.
So, absolutely. With that being said, I do want to throw out a special little notice real quick before we get up on out of here because it is, June. And I think what gets overlooked at the times in the month of June is it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I do want to throw this out there before we go out for the night. If you're, I know it can be hard at times because you get told, oh, you're a man. You just got to toughen up. You just got to be strong. It's not manly to cry. Like, I promise you, if you really need it, go get some help. You're not any less of a man if you go get help. And I think I wanted to throw it out there because I know that's the month for it. So I promise you, for all the men out there that might need to hear it, if you really need to, go get some help. You're not any less tougher if you cry or vent about your feelings. That's okay. So, like I said, I just wanted to throw a special little PSA out there for that.
I think that's great. Hey, talk to a friend, talk to a loved one. Yes, go get some help. Brett is 100% right. It doesn't make you less of a man. I would actually say it makes you more of a man that you acknowledge you need some help and you feel comfortable enough in yourself to go out there and get that help.
Oh, absolutely. We thank everybody for tuning in. There was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.